Chapter 12, A Reckoning by Fire Lake. Stop! You're stupid! Get off me! Ji yelled. Wu was just about to reach the practice patch when he heard his brother's voice echoing up ahead. His heart leapt, and he quickened his stride, eyes narrowing as he spotted two figures instead of one. Instinct kicked in. Ji was in trouble. Wu broke into a full sprint. As he neared the scene, he saw Greg Beauchamp, the local bully, gripping Ji's arm and pulling him toward the lava's edge. Fury surged through Wu, propelling him forward. He didn't think, he simply acted. The patches of ground between them blurred as Wu closed the distance in mere moments, his movements precise yet fueled by raw emotion. He reached Greg without a word, his presence undeniable. Greg must have seen him, but he didn't stop. With a sudden burst of movement, Wu unleashed a flurry of strikes to Greg's torso. The first hit forced Greg to release Ji, and the strikes that followed carried enough force to knock him backward. Greg stumbled, his shirt whipping wildly from the sheer power of Wu's movements, but he managed to stay upright. Greg staggered, eyes wide in disbelief. He had underestimated Wu entirely, assuming the older brother was no match for him. But now, with his chest heaving and his confidence shaken, Greg realized his mistake. Ji stared at Wu in awe. His brother moved like the martial masters they'd seen at the Regal Theater. There was no hesitation, no wasted effort, only precision and control. Wu stood firm, his gaze locked on Greg, unrelenting and fierce. Ji thought to himself, he may have just saved my life. Greg hesitated, then turned to leave, muttering something under his breath about revenge. You two will regret this, he shouted, his voice growing louder as he put distance between himself and the brothers. What? Wu roared, his voice cutting through the tension like a blade. He crouched, grabbing a fire rock just smaller than his fist. With a controlled motion, he hurled it through the air. It struck Greg squarely on the back of his head, causing him to stagger forward, clutching at the spot where it hit. Greg spun around, his eyes blazing. I'm gonna get you, he yelled, pointing accusingly at Wu as he stormed back toward them. Wu didn't wait. He surged forward to meet Greg, his speed startling. Greg swung wildly as they closed in, but Wu easily deflected the attempt, twisting his body with practiced grace. With a quick motion, he drove his arm into Greg's midsection, forcing the bully to double over. Without pausing, Wu grabbed Greg, lifted him clean off the ground, and slammed him onto a solid patch of earth with a force so tremendous it caused him to bounce. Greg hit the ground hard, the impact jarring. He curled up, arching his back in pain, steam from a nearby vent hissing over him as he writhed on the patch like a fish on a hot skillet. Defeated, he remained still, his earlier bravado completely extinguished. Wu towered over Greg, his voice sharp and unwavering. Don't you ever mess with him again! Don't mess with him! Greg didn't respond, too shaken to speak. Wu turned his back on the fallen bully and strode toward Ji. With each step, his fury ebbed, replaced by the calm of knowing his brother was safe. When Wu reached Ji, he placed a reassuring arm around his shoulders. Come on, bruh, let's go. As they walked back together, the setting sun bathed the lava fields in hues of orange and red, casting long shadows across the patches. Ji glanced up at his brother, his admiration unspoken but evident in his gaze. Thanks, Wu, he said quietly. Wu gave a small nod, his expression softening. Always. They disappeared into the fading light, the steam vents hissing gently behind them.